So we just got done with Thanksgiving, we got Christmas coming up, we got New Year's coming up. Everyone's inviting you out to dinner, there's family dinners, there's all these parties that are going to be coming up with coworkers. People are inviting you out to eat and you're looking at your schedule and man, you might have a dinner booked every weekend for the rest of this year. Maybe even going into next year with all the parties that are going to be coming up as well. And you can either one, blow the whole thing, just say forget it and just eat whatever there is on the menu, or you could be strategic about it, like many of my clients are, and actually find different ways to adapt and fit in while simultaneously eating healthy and getting really good hormonal responses so you can still see really good weight loss results. And if you're watching this, you'd probably like to do that. So you know what to do. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram at It's Bobby O'Brien for more shorter form content like this. So let's get into this longer term video on how you can basically adapt to this busy holiday schedule, to all these dinners, all these temptations, but still see weight loss results. Now, the most simple strategy, but the most effective strategy that I'm going to give you today, right now, is just to fill your plate up with higher fat, higher protein foods from animals. And if you've been watching me for a while, you're probably like, oh my God, here he goes again. But I will use a real anecdote from my personal experience from this a couple of days ago for the family dinner that I had for Thanksgiving. Had all sorts of junk food out. Everyone brought their pecan pies, pumpkin pie, all sorts of garbage, little shortcakes. People brought some sweet potato casserole, all sorts of processed garbage. But there was also some really, really good chicken on the table. 3 big rotisserie chickens. And I'll tell you, I completely filled my plate up with chicken and then started off with my first plate being somewhat natural. And of course, I include a little bit of sweet potato casserole, maybe a little bit of green bean casserole, but it didn't take up the majority of the plate. Now, I'm not big on portion sizing, but I'm much bigger on hormonal responses. And you're going to get a much better hormonal response from higher fat and higher protein foods, such as chicken, such as ground beef, such as salmon, or any other animal food that they serve at this particular restaurant or that they're serving at a particular gathering. And in this particular instance, it was chicken. So I filled my plate up with chicken. There was some asparagus on the table as well, a little bit of green bean casserole, a little bit of sweet potato casserole, just to blend in a little bit, but it wasn't much. It's a small amount, which is not near as bad as just, diversifying junk food on your plate. And come around to the second plate. Once I finish the first one, get a little bit more chicken, do the same thing again, a little bit of sweet potato casserole, a little bit of green bean casserole, but it's much less, it's even less. Because I'm starting to get really full, because I'm eating a whole lot of these animal foods, and we're also adding in those vegetables as well that still stimulate some satiety. By the time I finish that second plate and dessert comes around, I feel bloated, almost. Not near as bloated as I would have been if I would have just ate whatever there was on the table and didn't, get strategic about it and didn't fill my plate up with animal foods. But when it came time to eat dessert, I only had room for 1 slice of pie. And this is a true story, just one. And that was it. Everyone else was gorging themselves, eating a bunch of pie, a lot of sweet potato casserole, a lot of garbage. And I somehow found a way to satiate myself so much to the point to where, even from a psychological point of view, pie just sounded gross. And for Thanksgiving, for Christmas dinners, Christmas Eve dinners, and especially any dinners that come around New Year's, all these holiday-oriented dinners, that's going to be huge. Just because those are the dinners where people are going to be more likely to tempt you. There's going to be more temptations around you in the first place. And it's just going to be a little bit more difficult for you to try and eat healthy because you don't have the peer pressure aspect on your side and there's just more temptations. So that's the first strategy I would recommend. Just eating more in the way of higher fat, higher protein foods from animals so you get a good insulin response, right? But you mainly get a really big satiety response. So in this particular instance, that's what we're going for. Getting a really strong stimulation of leptin, right? Getting leptin nice and activated so that you can feel nice and physically satiated where the emptiness in your stomach completely goes away and it's purely psychological hunger. And even if you do go off of that psychological hunger, you can only go so far because you've filled yourself up. The analogy I kind of like to use here, and I'll give credit to where I got this analogy from, is from Dr. Jason Fung, amazing doctor that really dives into the same approach as well, looking at the hormonal implications of the human body in terms of weight loss. Uses what's called a buffet analogy. We've all been to a buffet and we've all been really, really full, right? And why did we get full? We got full because we're eating all these animal foods. The teriyaki, the sesame chicken, the beef, Mongolian beef, or whatever it is they're serving at a Chinese buffet or Japanese buffet if you're eating sushi or whatever it may be. What's really getting you full are the animal foods. The protein content and the higher fat content of those animal foods is what's making you feel satiated. But you'll notice that you'll always have some sort of room for that little fortune cookie at the end. Now, if you've been that full, right, using the same buffet analogy, you get that full, and let's take two people. We have person A and person B. Let's say person A eats all this teriyaki, all these animal foods, and they feel physically satiated, and person B does the same thing, right? But the only difference is that person A is offered a drumstick, but person B is offered a cookie. Now, person A is most likely not going to eat that drumstick. Person B, though, on the other hand, is most likely going to eat the cookie. Why? Because cookies offer no satiety at all. Very little. Very, very little. And of course, they offer a very negative insulin response as well, which we're not going to get into. But you get the point. It's not a good hormonal response, and it's not going to satiate you if you're eating processed sugars and processed carbohydrates. And that's why you want to make sure that you fill up your plate with foods that include higher fat and higher protein foods, and you exclude any processed carbohydrates. Because even person B who eats that cookie is only going to be able to eat so many cookies after getting that physically satiated. Now, if he were to just start eating cookies right off the bat and he had an empty stomach, then the likelihood of him eating a whole lot in the way of cookies is going to just be really, really prominent. So the tool to use here when going to any of these gatherings is to eat the higher fat, higher protein foods first. You get a good initial insulin release, you get a good initial satiety response, and you fill yourself up so that you can eat less of the garbage foods. Even if you do eat a little bit, it's not a big deal, but it's way better than just starting right off. You go to a Mexican restaurant and you get chips and queso, or you get, some garbage fried tamales or whatever it is. You just want to make sure that you don't do that, and you instead get a little bit strategic and find a way to eat only natural sources of carbohydrates and mostly animal foods for all the reasons that I just mentioned, right? So now, if we want to get a little bit more particular, not to the holiday events, but talking about the restaurants that you're going to be going to with your coworkers and your family or whatever it may be, talked about this in another video, but you really want to make sure that you're basically doing the same thing, but you're simultaneously kind of fitting in. So one way you can do this is at IHOP. Let's say you go to IHOP, a lot of people like to go there during the holiday times and, maybe get some big stack of pancakes or an omelet or something, but we still want to be strategic. If you find a way to mainly just get an omelet, but once again, go for a lot of side orders of natural carbohydrates to kind of complement your main course that's mainly higher fat, higher protein foods, right? Being that omelet, sour cream, guacamole, onions. Those three alone are going to give you a whole lot of weight in satiety, but make your food taste better. And I like to do this at Mexican restaurants, but I also do it at IHOP too. If I ever find myself in this situation, I will order a side order of white queso, not yellow queso, but white queso, if they offer it. It depends on the location. Usually, I'm pretty 90% of the time when I go to IHOP, they do offer white queso, right? And white cheese is way better than processed American cheese, which is processed on 50%. 50% on average, American cheese is processed, which is not even cheese at that point. So we want to avoid that at all costs, get our omelet, get our side orders of natural carbohydrate sources, and then maybe add that queso in so we get that additional satiety, and we're still simultaneously getting a good insulin response. Boom, you've made it, and you're fitting in. You're getting an omelet. You're not getting a bowl of of fruit and that's it, or just a little salad bowl or whatever it may be, and sticking the hell out like a white elephant. You're actually blending in, and you're actually getting foods that are going to serve you well and allow you to lose more weight with each meal that you eat when you're going to these restaurants. So it's the same theme, eating higher fat and higher protein foods, but we make sure that we order some side orders that complement that main course, that make our food taste good and are still going to give us a good hormonal response. So that is how you prepare for these holidays. Once again, if you'd like some shorter form videos on these topics, feel free to go to my Instagram page at It's Bobby O'Brien. We'll leave a link to that down in the description. Or if you want more of a personalized approach, more of a personalized program that is tailored to your anatomy, your physiology, and your specific weight loss goals, you know what to do. Click the link below in the description, and you can book a one-on-one call with me, not some sales rep or anything. You're going to be talking to me directly, and I can actually help you see those results right here, right now. So I will see you in the next video.